Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Big Apple Film Festival live script reading. Thank you all for being here. So, the excerpts of the scripts you're about to hear are from our winning screenwriters, so congratulations to all of you. The scripts that are going to be read are the following. Transference by Mark C. Spera. Roadrunner by Josh Madden. Jersey RICAN by Ashlei Hardenburg. Paul in Virginia by Clemy Clarke. After HEBDEN by David Kirkham. Field Trip by Claudio Martinez-Valle. Me CARINO by Christian Jacob Ramon. TODD and LOVETT by Heidi Bordogna. Bordogna. Excuse me. Heidi Bordogna. And our amazing cast of Gary Lee Mahmoud, Sara Kiefer, Sierra Naomi, Johnny Weber, Courtney Fenwick, Cameron Ward, Robert Lincoln, Mike Mills, and Chris Emmanuel. At the conclusion of the reading, we're going to invite the writers up for the Q&A. So at that point, we'll ask the actors to move over to the side, and then the writers will come up and grab a seat, and we'll do a Q&A. Okay? All right. So enjoy, and we will speak to the writers after. Thank you.
We ready to go? Ready? All right. Here we go. Transference, written by Mark Spera. Interior warehouse headquarters, night. D receives the message on his computer.
Got it.
Everyone stops what they are doing and gathers around D. He opens the message from O'Malley.
Devlin Cray III.
D is already on another computer, typing vigorously.
Devlin Cray III, born 1970 in Belfast, Ireland, Stanford Masters and Doctorate in Psychology, millionaire by 21, multimillionaire by 25, current net worth $1.2 billion. Owns a transport company, oil, weapons, contracts with military, donates to both major political parties. Sorry, all you libertarians.
Do you have an address?
Looks like the parent company, Cray Corporation, HQ, outside of San Jose.
Taka, Sai. We're going to need recon. Schedules, security, building layouts, the usual. Where he goes, when he goes, and who he goes with.
Exterior, the keeper's compound, day. Silas, in camouflage fatigues, is hunkered down in a scattered tree line about 100 yards from the compound. Point of view, peering through binoculars at the field and gated front entrance to the compound, he speaks into his earphone mic.
This ain't good. 50 yards of empty space between the tree line and that first fence. Looks like 10 foot with razor wire. Guessing the whole area is set with ground sensors. What about you, Taka?
2 double barricaded entrances with 4 guards at each station. Looks like the fucking green zone down there. D, Brew?
Interior van, day. A quarter mile away, D and Brew view the terrain on a large screen, taken from a hovering drone above the building.
Move to the north a bit. Copy that. Looks like that dead zone surrounds the entire compound. Guards in the corner towers. There's a helipad on the roof.
That could give us what we need.
Interior warehouse headquarters, night. The team is gathered around a table, Rachel at the head.
Looks like he lives and works in the same place. No vehicle in or out other than Cray's. It's a fortress in the middle of nowhere.
Silas crosses to a whiteboard where several photos hang.
Only one road in. Guards here, here, and here. Towers on the 4 corners, dead zone, motion sensing devices, and cameras. 18 floors.
Satellite and radio antennas by the helipad up top.
D, bring up the building, please.
D types. A 3D holographic image projects from his goggles.
Zoom in on the top.
D types. Rachel points at a door.
That's our way in.
How? Brew and Reef are out of commission. I'm half speed with this ankle. We need stealth. 1 person.
Everyone looks around the table. Silence.
Where's Iron Man when you need him?
Iron Man's dead.
True, they definitely killed the wrong dude, though.
Agree. Should have killed the other guy in the suit. What was his name?
Jim?
Oh yeah, Jim, the black guy.
How many brothers do you know named Jim?
His suit was too big for him. That small head and the big suit just looked weird.
The $6 million man.
He didn't wear a suit.
I know, but Jim was the name of Steve Austin's stepdad. Steve kicked ass.
I didn't know that.
Oscar Goldman. I want to be Oscar.
Yes, Oscar. Good one, big guy.
Me. I can do it.
Goldman. I thought it was Goldberg.
Like the wrestler?
Nah, he kicked ass.
I'll do it.
What?
Me. I'll do it. It has to be me. I'm the one he wants.
Sure, Doc. You been into reef stuff?
Wait. Go on.
I've been working for some time now on a new level of transference. Multiple attributes transferred at one time.
I recall reading something about that.
I'm talking about transference to a completely different consciousness.
You mean like transferring one of my attributes into you?
More than that. Multiple attributes from multiple hosts into a surrogate consciousness.
Are you crazy? Have you ever done that before?
Yes. Sort of.
Successfully?
Not yet.
We get one shot. That's too risky.
One person with multiple abilities, you can't do it. Lily needs you. Brew, Reef, and Taka are both out. Silas needs to fly the bird. O'Malley for the evac. It's the only way.
Rachel looks over at the crew and then back at Court.
We're bleeding out here, Rach. It's now or never.
Are you sure you can make the transference work?
If it doesn't, it won't matter. I'll either be dead or batshit crazy.
All right. Todd and Lovett, written by Heidi C. Bordogna. Interior, basement, night. Todd packs away some storage boxes into the corner of his basement. He hears faint noises down the passageway coming from Lovett's. He ignores it and continues to move his boxes. He hears the noise again and turns, heading down the passageway. Interior Lovett basement, continuous. Todd emerges.
Mrs. Lovett.
No answer. From above, he hears muffled arguing. The Lovetts yell at each other. Mrs. Lovett protests against Mr. Lovett's drunken rage, but it is impossible to decipher what they are saying. What does come through clearly, though, is a loud slap. Todd winces, eyes narrowing. The yelling stops. Footsteps head away in opposite directions. Todd leaves and walks down the passageway to his own apartment. Exterior, Fleet Street, day. Todd makes his way down busy Fleet Street. People are out shopping. Christmas decorations are being put up. The bustling crowd swarm. Todd sees a young woman headed toward him. Her kind face stands out in a crowd. This is Elizabeth, 20s. He nods to her, just as Mr. Lovett pushes past her into Todd's face.
Todd? I thought that was you.
Mr. Lovett grabs Todd's hand. Elizabeth holds Todd's eye for a moment, then hurries along, past them.
I never got to thank you for getting that awful lieutenant off my back the other night.
He continues to vigorously shake Todd's hand. Todd does not look at Mr. Lovett. Rather, he watches Elizabeth continue down the street.
Can I buy you a pint, sir?
Todd turns to Mr. Lovett, grabbing his hand to stop the vigorous shaking. Mr. Lovett coughs abruptly. Todd turns his head away.
No, thank you, Mr. Lovett. I must get back to work.
Of course. Stop in for a pie anytime.
Mr. Lovett claps Todd's shoulder and heads down the block into Cheshire Cheese. Exterior, Fleet Street, continuous. Todd walks down Fleet Street, but instead of going to his barber shop, he walks over to Mrs. Lovett's pie shop and enters. Interior, Lovett's pie shop, continuous. There are only 2 customers in the place. Todd looks around and sees Mrs. Lovett behind the counter. Though she has tried to disguise it with makeup, she can't hide the red welt on her face, evidence of the slap heard the night before. Mrs. Lovett takes pies out of the oven and hands them to 2 customers.
Here you go, one eel and one pigeon.
They hand her some money and leave. She looks at Todd.
Good day, Mr. Todd.
Good day. Good day to you too, ma'am.
So will it be?
Todd looks at the pies.
Pigeon, please, to go.
Coming right up.
She places a pigeon pie in the oven to heat it.
I've just seen your husband.
I wish I'd never seen my husband.
Todd smiles. Mrs. Lovett doesn't.
What's the old sod want?
Oh, to thank me for helping him out the other night.
With what?
The lieutenant was going to, well, you see, he was extremely,
Drunk? Of course he was drunk. When has he ever been sober?
She takes the pie out of the oven, wraps it, and hands it to Todd.
Thank you. He was going to take him in, you see.
He should have. Better spending the night in a cell than in my bed.
Todd looks down awkwardly.
I didn't mean to.
No concern. He's done it before and he'll do it again, but I thank you for preventing me having to go down and bail him out.
Todd looks at her sincerely.
Mrs. Lovett, if there's ever anything I can do...
I don't think there's anything anyone can do, Mr. Todd. But thank you, and enjoy the pie.
She takes a deep breath.
I wish the quality was better, but I do the best with what little I got.
She nods to him. He tips his hat to her, knowing she's not only talking about the pie, and exits. Exterior street, evening. Todd walks down the street carrying groceries. He sees a small crowd gathering on a corner. He walks to it. To his surprise, in the center is Elizabeth. She is speaking to the crowd.
Women deserve the right to vote. Women contribute in society. We work, we tend out the home. Some of us even own businesses.
The crowd, primarily men, isn't exactly supportive. There are some boos and goughs.
Go on.
We pay taxes, even contribute to the service.
You can service this.
Crowd member 2 grabs his groin and waggles at her. The rest laugh.
Stop that. This is a public street.
Elizabeth looks at Todd, surprised and pleased to see him.
And I got the right to do what I want. I'm a member of the public.
He looks at Elizabeth.
A voting member of the public.
The crowd laughs again. The lieutenant comes up, breaking up the crowd.
Move along, people. You're blocking the sidewalk.
He looks at Elizabeth.
And as for you, I've warned you before.
With all due respect, Lieutenant, I have just as much right to be here as anyone, and I should have just as much right to vote.
The lieutenant frowns.
You should go home and stop causing a ruckus. What would your father say?
Why do you care more about what my father says than about what I have to say?
Todd laughs. The lieutenant looks at him, shocked.
Your father is an upstanding member of this community.
And I'm not?
You must admit, sir, she has a point.
The lieutenant gives him a look. He has no response. Elizabeth and Todd share a quick grin.
Nice young women don't spend their time on street corners. I advise you to move on with your business.
Elizabeth nods.
Of course, Lieutenant. I'll get right on that.
The lieutenant sneers at her and at Todd, then leaves. Todd and Elizabeth laugh.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get you on his bad side.
Oh, I'm sure that was only a matter of time.
She looks at him quizzically. He extends his hand.
Sweeney Todd, I recently moved here.
Elizabeth Rendell. Yes, I've passed your barber shop. I've seen crowds. It seems that business is going well?
Yes, many happy customers, perhaps one less after today, but...
They both laugh again, then a slightly awkward beat.
Well, I actually must run. Off to find another corner, so to speak.
Yes, I must get back to work as well.
She raises an eyebrow.
Oh, I didn't mean...
I'm sure you didn't. Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Todd.
Likewise.
She extends her hand. He bends to kiss it, but instead, she hands him a suffragette flyer.
Oh, thank you. I look forward to reading this.
It's captivating. Ta!
She smiles and walks off. Exterior barbershop, day. Todd opens up the door to the barbershop and hangs the sign above the barber pole. Tobias comes outside and begins sweeping up the entryway. Todd looks over and sees the lieutenant headed over.
Good morning, Lieutenant.
Mr. Todd.
Todd is all smiles. The lieutenant is not.
How are you this morning, sir?
A word of advice, Todd. Being new to the area, you may not want to get so involved with politics.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm involved.
The lieutenant holds up a hand, interrupting.
I know you've been abroad for some time, and you may be used to...
The lieutenant looks condescendingly at Tobias. Tobias looks up, but does not make eye contact.
different customs. However, you'll find that although this is London, we are a bit more conservative in this part of the city.
Todd smiles, trying to diffuse the situation.
So I really don't think...
We don't go in for liberal ideas here. Women voting, in politics, what next? A woman PM. A queen is bad enough.
Sir, I didn't mean to offend. Please, let me show you my sincerity. Come in for a shave.
Red-faced, Tobias shoots Todd a look. Todd gives him a half grin. The lieutenant does not notice, as he's peering in the window.
A shave. All right, Mr. Todd.
They all enter the barbershop. Interior barbershop, continuous. Todd seats the lieutenant in the chair.
Just a shave. No haircut today?
No, sir. Just a shave is fine.
Tobias, hot towels for the good lieutenant.
Yes, sir.
Tobias goes to get hot towels for the lieutenant. He takes his time. Todd gets some shaving lotion ready.
Women getting the vote. Can you imagine? Not while I'm walking the earth.
Well, quite. Tobias,
Tobias jumps and looks up at Todd.
towels, please. Now.
Tobias brings over the towels and places them on the lieutenant's face. Todd leans the chair back, and the lieutenant gives a happy sigh.
Nice to take a load off, eh?
Tobias looks up at Todd.
I shall get back to sweeping.
Tobias nods. Tobias exits and begins sweeping the front, peeking back in the window at Todd. Todd lathers the lieutenant's face and begins to slowly shave him. Crick, crick. Each sweep of the blade slides across the lieutenant's face. Todd brings the razor to the lieutenant's neck, savoring the slow glide across the lieutenant's Adam's apple. Todd looks at himself in the mirror. He raises his arm high, holding the blade up toward the ceiling. It glints in the morning sunlight coming in the window. From the window, Tobias looks on in horror. Todd watches his reflection as he plunges the blade into the lieutenant's neck. With rapid strikes, he slices across the lieutenant's throat. The lieutenant gasps at his throat as blood splatters across Todd's apron, when suddenly, Todd's head springs up, viciously alert. He looks up at his reflection, his clean, bloodless reflection. He looks down at the lieutenant, whose throat is intact, his face cleanly shaven. Todd looks at Tobias, who is still sweeping. He peeks in. Todd smiles at him.
Are we done, sir? Mr. Todd?
Todd turns back to the lieutenant.
Yes. Let me just polish you off.
Todd finishes the shave and slaps some tonic on the lieutenant. He removes the towels from the lieutenant's face.
All finished.
Todd raises the chair back, and the lieutenant inspects himself in the mirror.
Wonderful job, sir.
He stands, shaking Todd's hand.
You are a welcome addition to the neighborhood, Mr. Todd.
Thank you, Lieutenant. The pleasure was all mine.
The lieutenant exits.
Roadrunner. Roadrunner by Josh Madden. Fade in, over black, superimpose. The word gullible is not in the dictionary. The world is made up of 3 types of people: those who accept that as truth, those who are smart enough to know better, and those who grab the dictionary and flip to the G's. You can also go to merriam-webster.com and check. Go ahead. I'll wait.
When I was a kid, I was walking along this fence row. Must have been 11 or 12.
Fade to Interior Airport Lounge, afternoon. A hand sets an empty scotch glass on the bar, waves to the bartender, and points to the glass, indicating another round. We slowly pull back as he continues the story.
Anyway, I heard this strange little sound, and I looked over and saw this bird stuck in the fence. Its legs were kicking a little bit like I was still trying to get out. But the thing was obviously stuck pretty good. I walked over to get a closer look at it because it was kind of weird looking. Its little chest was jumping up and down like its heart must have been beating a mile a minute.
The bartender comes over and pours him another drink. The lawyer is in his mid-40s and a little rough around the edges. He is talking to a woman, late 20s, sitting next to him.
Well, I didn't want to see the little guy suffer, so I reached down and I started trying to entangle him from the wire. At first, I thought he might peck me or something, but he stayed as still as he could be while I got him loose. And as soon as he pulled his head around from that last bit of fence wire, he took off.
The lawyer looks squarely at the woman.
Running.
The woman looks curiously back at him. The lawyer keeps staring at her, dead serious now.
Son of a bitch was a roadrunner.
The woman chuckles with amusement.
You ever seen one of them before?
The woman shakes her head.
Me neither. That's why it looked so weird to me. Now here's the crazy part. You know what the fence was around?
What?
A coyote pen. If I just left him alone, that coyote would have finally caught that goddamn roadrunner.
They both laugh.
Wait, what's a coyote pen?
My granddaddy used to hunt coyotes, kind of like fox hunt, but they didn't ride horses, wear them dumbass looking hats. He'd let his hounds out and they'd catch the trail of a coyote. He'd jump in his truck and follow the sound of their howling until they catch it.
And what happened when they caught it?
You ever see a dog play with one of them squeaky toys?
Oh.
A couple times a year, Granddaddy get together with the other hunters in the state. They go to one of these pens where they keep a few coyotes. It's probably a couple thousand acres. I went with them a time or two. They'd sit around the campfires and drink, listen to them hounds chasing them around. That coyote sure would have got that damn Roadrunner if I just let him alone. I love that story. I tell it all the time.
It's a good story.
Great story. You know what's great about it?
The woman looks over at him as she waits for him to answer his own question. The bartender pours another drink for him.
It can mean whatever you want it to mean.
I didn't think it really meant anything.
Well, you didn't have any context. I told that story yesterday for a closing argument. Embezzlement case. Guy was guilty as hell, but he had a damn good lawyer. Almost got off. But I guarantee you that Roadrunner story won it for me.
How's that?
Well, we all grew up watching cartoons. It's like the great equalizer. White, black, Hispanic, Eskimo, Indian. Now, you mentioned that Roadrunner. On the other hand, and you mentioned that coyote, and they all smile because they all know what you're talking about.
I don't get it.
When you think about a cartoon, you think about being a kid. Things were simpler then. Black and white, right and wrong. Takes the gray area out of the equation. The reasonable doubt.
The woman looks skeptical.
Look, if I paint the guy out to be the Roadrunner, and I give a little push to make you root for the coyote, then I got you. I mean, we all really did kind of root for the coyote. It's an underdog thing. Must have seen him blow himself up or run into a rock or something at least 1,000 times. We'd all love to finally see him catch that little bastard.
The woman shrugs. She can sort of see the point. The sound of an announcement comes over the airport PA, and the woman turns to listen.
Now boarding flight 1357 at gate 26.
On the flip side, I could make the guy out to be the coyote, wily and devious, but destined to fail. To see him go down would be to see the normal order of the universe. That's actually the way it went. He didn't stand a chance.
The lawyer holds up his hand to flag the bartender down again. The woman puts her purse on her shoulder.
Well, it was nice talking to you.
Where are you going? I was just about to get the next round, Amaretto Sour, right?
That was my flight they just announced.
Oh, well, maybe I'll catch you coming through some other time. Where you headed anyway?
DC?
Watch your pocketbook.
The lawyer cackles at his own joke. She smiles politely.
Have a nice trip.
The lawyer gives her a wave of dismissal, and she turns and walks away. Interior airport gate, moments later. The woman gives her boarding pass to the flight attendant and walks down the ramp toward the plane. Interior plane, night. We track down the aisle past passengers dozing and reading to find the woman sitting in the first class seat. Her laptop is open on her tray. She is typing away for a moment and then stops, seeming to be unsure of what to write. Then a strange smile comes across her face and she chuckles to herself before resuming typing. Interior, large warehouse, day. The candidate, male, late 40s, stands at the podium in front of a gathering of several hundred blue-collar workers.
So we've all got to realize that when we have an opportunity like that staring us in the face, we can't allow ourselves to pass it by. If I would have left that little Roadrunner caught in that fence, that coyote would have finally got him.
The workers are totally engrossed in the story.
You see, that Roadrunner is like immigration reform. And that coyote is Jerry Patrick.
One of the workers in the crowd smiles and nods in agreement.
We're not going to let that coyote kill a Roadrunner, are we?
No.
Are we?
No.
The crowd cheers. Interior, large warehouse, later. The crowd has dispersed. The candidate is shaking hands with a few last people remaining there.
Thanks again, Jim. You tell Patty I'll take a rain check on that lobster bisque.
The candidate slaps Jim on the shoulder and points at him with seriousness.
And I mean that.
The candidate breaks into a wide grin.
Yes, sir. You just say when.
One of the candidate's aides, Roger Dawes, early 30s, and rather anxious, stands nearby. The candidate turns to him.
Roger, we ready to roll?
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, I'll see you soon. Y'all drive safe.
The men wave goodbye as the candidate walks away with Roger towards the back of the stage.
We have the playback ready for you to listen to in the car.
Great. They really like that damn Roadrunner bit. Who came up with that?
I believe that was Stacy, sir.
Pretty folksy for Stacy.
Exterior, large warehouse, continuous. They approach the SUV parked just outside the large bay doors of the warehouse. A woman is standing with her back to them by the car. She is on the phone.
Stacy!
She turns around, and we see she is the same woman from the airport lounge.
Where'd you get that Roadrunner story?
Stacy holds up a finger as she continues her conversation. The candidate and Roger get into the car.
We'll just try it again on the next one and see if it sticks.
Stacy gets in the car. Interior, car, continuous.
All right, Donna. See you tomorrow.
Stacy ends the call and shuts her door. The car starts moving.
Where'd you get that Roadrunner story?
They really liked it, didn't they?
They ate it up.
I think we can still massage it a little more. I don't know if immigration reform is the best use for it, but they definitely loved it when you called Jerry the coyote.
You know, it's crazy. I always used to kind of root for the coyote.
Stacy chuckles, and Roger forces a laugh. He's obviously the candidate's yes man. Exterior, Jerry Patrick's campaign headquarters, day. It's a small building on a mostly deserted main street. A car pulls up on the curb. Interior, Jerry Patrick's campaign headquarters, continuous. The place is buzzing. Several volunteers are on the phone, and the room is festooned with campaign signs and posters. A man on a cell phone walks in the front door at a fast clip. This is Russell Mackey, early 40s.
Yeah, I'm about to show it to them.
Russell pulls the phone away and whistles loudly. Several of the faces in the room look towards him. Russell nods for a couple of them to follow him into his office.
Let you know as soon as we get a game plan. All right.
Office, continuous. Russell ends the call and closes the office door behind Kristen and Tom, who have just followed him in.
You got to see this.
Russell pulls up a video on his phone and holds it up for them. It shows the candidate in front of a larger group than before. They're cheering loudly, and he has to wait for them to quiet down before he can resume speaking.
That's right. And if old Coyote Jerry comes after our rights again, I think I know what we're going to tell him.
Beep, beep.
I didn't hear you. What are we going to tell him?
Beep, beep.
The crowd cheers, and the candidate holds up his arms victoriously. They continue to chant beep, beep until the video ends.
What the hell?
When did this start?
A couple of days ago, they already have T-shirts of Jerry's face on the coyote's body while he holds up a sign that says, "I didn't really think this through."
Well, what are we gonna do?
I say we embrace it. I think half the people root for the coyote anyway.
Really?
Hold on.
Russell opens the office door and steps out. Main room, continuous.
Can I have everyone's attention?
The volunteers quickly stop talking and look at Russell.
You've all seen the Roadrunner and Coyote cartoons, right?
They all give slightly confused nods.
How many of you rooted for the Coyote?
About half the volunteers slowly raise their hands. Russell surveys the room a moment. Interior, TV studio, night. A TV host sits behind a desk opposite a male guest and a female guest. And now he's saying the Roadrunner is gun legislation? What does that even mean?
Beep, beep, Wendy. Beep, beep.
Now, wait a minute. I think we do need to acknowledge Jerry Patrick is fine with being referred to as the coyote. He said it himself. He's determined. He's willing and capable to take the psychological punishment of the job. He's hungry for change.
Most of the country is hungry for change. Exterior, city street, day. Two groups of protesters are facing off on opposite sides of the street. One side is pro-coyote, the other side pro-roadrunner. They have colorful signs and cartoonish props. Just run away! That's all you know how to do, anyway.
Acme called. They want their brains back.
Tempers reach their peak, and one of the pro-coyote protesters throws a small rubber anvil across the street. It strikes a man in the head and he falls to the ground. The pro-roadrunner protesters charge and a melee ensues. Interior courtroom, day. A defense attorney is addressing the jury.
Got a defense attorney? I'll be a defense attorney. All right. So it's very simple. I ask that you just revisit all the testimony and evidence, and you'll plainly see that Devin Tucker is innocent. Thank you.
The defense attorney walks back to his seat. The prosecuting attorney is our lawyer from the airport. He smugly stands and walks towards the jury. He stands in front of them for a moment, seemingly in deep reflection.
When I was just a kid, I was walking along a fence row, and all of a sudden I heard this strange little sound. I looked over, and I saw this weird-looking little bird stuck in the wire. I didn't want to see the little thing suffer, so I walked over and untangled it. And when I finally got it loose, I stood there and I watched it take off, running.
The lawyer looks over at the jury, really milking it.
It was a Roadrunner. That's why it looked so weird. I'd never seen one before. And you know what makes that story even crazier? The fence he was stuck in was around a coyote pen. If I hadn't got him out, that old coyote would have finally got the Roadrunner.
The lawyer smiles at the jury, but he is surprised to see that only half the faces are smiling back.
You see, that coyote is, he's like Dab and Tucker there.
The lawyer, excuse me. The lawyer points to the accused and then looks back at the jury. Some of the frowns are really throwing him off now.
And the Roadrunner, he's like...
The lawyer stops and stares at one of the jurors who is smiling. He sees the juror is wearing a little metal button on his lapel that says, beep, beep. The lawyer looks like a deer in the headlights. He is completely confused. Fade out. Paul and Virginia by Clemy Clarke. Exterior ocean day. Aerial view of a tropical island with a volcano. The sky is as blue as the sea and the sun shines brightly over the lagoon. Music and text appears. Isle of France, Mauritius Island, Christmas, 1744. Out of the blue, on this sunny day, a tremendous hurricane breaks out above the 18th century sailing ship drawn towards the shore and the raging waves. Interior, artist studio, Paris, day. A large painting depicting the scene of the shipwreck covers an entire wall of the painter's studio on which a date appears. Paris, July 14th, 1789. The painter, Vernet, a very old man, adds a touch of yellow to the fiery sky. He looks possessed by his painting. Vernet wipes his brush on his blouse, removes his wig, which he uses to dry the sweat off his forehead. He then turns around.
Well?
No response. Bernardine, also very old, but still handsome and intense, sits behind him.
Bernardine?
Bernardine looks hypnotized by the painting.
My friend, you are too talented.
Vernet, moved, looks at his painting.
Try to understand. Your painting brings back a memory that breaks my heart.
You are getting on my nerves, sir. Your memory helped you sell your book all over Europe and even in this new country of America.
My friend, if my novel Paul and Virginia attracted so many readers, it is because these times are too quiet and uneventful. So far, 1789 has been quite a boring year.
Anyway, if you do not mind, sir, I cannot bear your endless critics anymore. My painting lacks red, lacks black. Let us finish it, sir.
Do not get mad, my dear friend. This painting recalls a story which remains a mystery to me. Even today, I wonder why a hurricane struck on such a calm day.
Exterior, underwater, day. Opening titles. Colorful fish encircle the shipwreck and glides along the deck between the broken masts.
I am still asking myself about my book. At this point of my life, I cannot tell the difference between memories and dreams. Night and day, I think about this great ship lost in the quarrels of the Indian Ocean.
Floating objects, chests, rigs, emerge from the hull of the wreck. A frangipane flower, thank you, with white petals and a yellow iris is pushed off by the current. A handsome mixed-race young man with green eyes appears. Paul, 16, swims with all his might towards the flower. Paul moves below the flower towards the shadow of a girl, struggling to free herself from a long and thick red velvet dress, which makes her sink. Paul grabs the cloth and takes it off her beautiful face. Virginia, 16, has her eyes wide open, staring intensely at Paul. Paul pulls Virginia upwards, but her red velvet dress is too heavy and starts dragging them both to the depths of the ocean. Interior, bedroom, night. The color red from bloodstains on white sheets. The Countess, 19, quite a lovely young woman, looks in great pain. She is giving birth to a little baby girl. She is helped by the missionary, 40, with large, dirty hands, who wears a soiled colonial cassock and an old straw hat. He grabs a rusty cutlass from his belt, cuts the umbilical cord, and baptizes the baby.
I baptize you, Virginia, born on this virgin island. In the name of the Father.
The screams of the newborn child merge with those of another woman giving birth. Interior, shed, night. On a sandy floor, Maggie, 15, a very pretty young woman from Madagascar, screams as she gives birth to a mixed-race baby boy. The baby does not scream. Instead, he opens his green eyes and looks around him towards the Malagasy female slaves who are helping the childbirth. The slaves turn their heads in order not to look at this silent boy with piercing eyes. Exterior, underwater, day. Paul, whose green eyes are wide open underwater, looks at Virginia desperately, as it is so difficult to lead her towards the surface with her heavy red velvet dress. Interior, artist's studio, Paris, day.
What you are telling me now, sir, is very different from your book. You never mentioned that Paul was mixed race and that his mother, Maggie, was a slave. And these thrilling events, why did you never express them? Is this, sir, the true story of Paul and Virginia?
Bernardine stares at the painting. He remains quiet, without breaking his stare on the painting.
I made a promise.
Bernardine, still his eyes locked on the painting, covers his ears with his hands.
I hear her voice. I hear her in your painting. In this storm, a voice speaks to me the same way it spoke to me on the island.
What did she say?
She said, "Do not write the truth. Write that we're happy on our island."
Bernardine gets close to the painting.
Your painting is beautiful and real. It calls for truth.
He turns to the painter.
Your painting is finished.
Vernet sighs with relief. Bernardine puts on his coat and walks to the door. Suddenly, Vernet stops him.
Please, sir, stay.
Bernardine hesitates, then smiles with resignation.
Do you have anything to drink?
Vernet pushes aside a couple of canvases and drags a big wine case.
Shipwrecks seem lucrative.
Depends on how you paint them.
And how you live them.
Vernet brings him an armchair. Bernardine takes off his coat and sits heavily. Vernet pours him a glass of wine. They both drink, enjoying the quality of the wine. Vernet is suddenly very attentive.
You see, sir, I added touches of red and yellow in the blue sky, since you wrote that there were long furrows of fire in the sky. But I do not understand where this strange light comes from.
Bernardine drinks his wine while looking at Vernet.
I should say, once upon a time.
Exterior, island forest. Twilight. Intense heat in the tropical forest.
It all started a long time before my arrival on the island. The young countess and her outcast of a husband arrived on the island after being condemned to exile by His Majesty the King of France. And there was also Maggie, and on the slave ship approaching the island.
The Countess, then 18, makes her way as fast as she can through the jungle, uneasy with her long red velvet dress. Her golden silk shawl floats in the night. She follows her husband, the Count, 30, wearing a purple velvet vest and rolled-up trousers. He moves rapidly, separating the branches in front of her. The Countess smiles at him with love, but also apprehension. The sounds of the forest are overwhelming. Suddenly, the Countess loses sight of her husband. It's getting darker.
Sir? Sir?
Anxious, she tries to walk faster. The sound of falling water attracts her. In the moonlight, she discovers the frightful beauty of an impressive waterfall.
Sir, where are you?
Exterior, ocean, night. A slave ship with 3 masts sails on the ocean. Interior ship, night. In the corner of a somber, suffocating deck, a dozen of slaves are piled against each other, suffering and moaning. A pretty young slave girl, seen giving birth, who is to be named Maggie, then 15, suffers in silence. She stares intensely through the hatchway at the dark night. Suddenly and mysteriously, she sees the sky being lit by hundreds of shooting stars. Exterior, island forest, twilight. The Countess is still lost, next to the terrifying waterfall.
Sir, where are you?
The Countess is surrounded by the violent breeze from the waterfall that frames her long neck and blonde hair.
Right here.
The Count wraps his arms around her. She shivers. Exterior, island dune, night. The Count leads the Countess down a dune towards a fisherman's cabin surrounded by small boats and fishing nets. The sea is roaring. A couple of Malagasy and African slave fishermen sit on an overturned boat. They do not react upon seeing the couple. The Countess' eyes meet those of one of the slaves, Domas, a tall and handsome man, quiet and wise. He looks at her beautiful silhouette. The Countess, intrigued and moved by him, holds his stare, but her husband walks past her and leads her towards the cabin. Interior, island cabin, night. The Countess discovers the interior of the poor cabin. There is only a small bench on which her husband helps her lie down. He kisses her and caresses her while looking in her eyes. She reacts with passion and is drawn into pleasure. Interior, artist studio, Paris, evening. Vernet, uncomfortable, smiles and sips his wine. Then he points out Bernardine with his glass.
Obviously, the king's censorship in the church would not have allowed you to describe this night any further.
Of course, my friend. I could not shock my readers with an overtly crude description of how Virginia was conceived.
Wedding nights are sometimes unspeakable secrets. In general, they end pretty well.
You know, Mr. Vernet, everything on this island so far from our world comes from heaven and hell.
And how did Paul come to this world?
Exterior, Port Louis, dawn. Port Louis is still a small rural harbor. The large slave ship is anchored. Malagasy slaves disembark small boats. Maggie is immediately noticeable. All the slaves move with difficulty, exhausted and enchained. A few settlers are gathering to purchase slaves. They are armed with muskets and machetes. It's their usual routine of examining the merchandise. They check the slaves' teeth and negotiate their price, all the while touching their different body parts. Some go as far as weighing the male slave's genitalia. The Count bargains and buys Maggie. He has the dignity not to touch her. Exterior, path, forest, day. Aerial view of a long, sinuous path which traces its way through the wild and volcanic landscape of the island. A small cart with a single horse moves along the path. The driver, Domas, seen earlier staring at the Countess, looks ahead. The Count is sitting at his side with a long musket. Maggie is sitting in the back of the cart. Standing between rocks, a dodo, sort of a big turkey with silver feathers on its rump, looks up in fear as the cart passes by. It finds shelter inside a hole in the rocks. Interior, artist studio, Paris, night.
Excuse me, sir, but was I right to hear you speak of a dodo?
Bernardine gestures as if to sweep away Vernet's remark.
This bird, which you call the dodo, with its famous silver feathers, Dutch sailors have eaten the very last one of its kind some 2 centuries ago.
Listen, Mr. Vernet, my patience diminishes with age. If you doubt my story, I may as well leave.
Bernardine stands up and, with a theatrical gesture, puts on his coat again and his hat, decorated with silver feathers, just like the dodo's. He walks towards the door.
Don't, sir.
Vernet jumps and takes off Bernardine's hat. He looks at the silver feathers. He takes Bernardine back to his seat.
These ornaments on your hat, sir, seem to be coming from this extinct bird. So please understand if I find myself moved and disturbed. You look like telling tales, but are you trying to display proof?
Your painting, sir, takes me back to a past I tried to forget for 30 years.
Bernardine drinks his wine slowly and makes a sign to Vernet that it's good. Bernadette nods without smiling.
I am reasonable, but also curious.
Let's go on.
Exterior, 3 hills, day. The cart enters a green valley at the foot of 3 rocky mountains.
At the foot of these mountains we call the 3 hills, Maggie, the young slave, exhausted from her trip, discovers the setting of her new life.
The Count leads the cart to the front of the only constructions in the landscape, a small wooden colonial house with a garden and a cabin for the slaves and animals. The plantation, a sugarcane field, spreads near the house. Domas, the slave, stops the horse. He helps the frightened young slave to step off the carriage.
Domas, tell her that we will call her Maggie. Point the 3 hills to her, and if she gets lost, she should always walk towards them.
Domas translates in Malagasy, showing Maggie the 3 hills while he walks her towards the main house. Interior, house 3 hills, day. The Count opens the door and enters with Maggie into a large and dark room. A long rustic wooden table with chairs with an impressive armchair which looks like the master's. The Countess comes to greet them. She is still very beautiful but tired. She smiles with relief seeing the slave.
My lady, here is our new Maggie who replaces the previous Maggie, whose death from the fevers I shall always mourn. I hope this one will last longer. Please teach her some of our language and explain everything she needs to know.
The Countess smiles and bows with amusement.
At your service, sir, and dear husband.
The Countess signals Maggie to follow her up the stairs to the first floor. Interior, bedroom 3 hills, day. The Countess shows Maggie the large bed.
Bed.
Maggie looks at her. Bed. The Countess shows her the water jug behind a rustic screen in the corner.
Water. I'll show you.
Exterior, pond, 3 hills, day. The Countess directs her slave to fill the water jug at the fountain. It's a small natural pond that glistens in the sunlight. Maggie sees her reflection in the water. Suddenly, she sees in the water the image of 2 young people, Paul and Virginia, then at 16, drowning. Their image fades, and Maggie can only see the reflection of her own face. Terrified, Maggie runs away. The Count loads his musket.
Oh, please, there is no need. She won't go far.
Exterior, tropical forest, day. Maggie runs up to the forest. She hears the distant cries of slaves and gunshots. Afraid, she stops and hides behind the giant ferns. She sees an armed man with dogs followed by slaves that carry the body of another slave. Maggie waits with caution for them to walk away before she heads back to the 3 hills. Exterior, 3 hills, sunset. Maggie returns, fearful, to the plantation. On her way, she sees the slaves in the sugarcane fields around the house. Domas seems to be their chief. He moves away to meet Maggie. He talks to her very softly and Malagasy.
Next time, they cut your shanks.
Maggie doesn't dare look at him.
That's what they do with slaves when they try to escape.
Domas looks at her in the eyes.
Look at me.
She looks up at him.
Those who succeed, where did they go? This island is a prison.
Interior, shed, 3 hills, evening. Domas shows where Maggie will live, on the straw beside the animals. She sits down on the straw with a submissive look.
Will they be good to me?
If you want them to be good to you, you have to obey and not run away.
I didn't want to run away. I got scared. I saw the reflection of 2 young people drowning in the pond.
Domas stares at her.
You're from Betsimisaraka tribe. I can tell from your beauty.
My ancestors came from far away in the ocean.
It's said that they have magical powers. It's what allowed them to make such long journeys at sea.
My mother said that these powers were given to us by the spirit of the earth and the ocean. We can carry waves into storms, turn day into night, earth into gold. I will give these powers to my children and to the children of my children.
Domas looks at the opening of the shed.
My mother said once that we have these powers, so one day we can be free.
I doubt it. Don't tell anyone what you saw in the pond.
Interior, Cecilia's room, day. A room in an old nursing home deep in South Texas. Cheap stickers, corkboards, and a vase of dead roses blend uneasily with the room's austere sterility. The walls ache with age. A pair of hands wearing latex gloves changes out an IV. On the bed lies Cecilia, 70s, looking with wide, vacant eyes up at the ceiling, mumbling inaudibly.
Buenos días, Cecilia.
The gloved hands belong to Sara, who does her work with respect and precision.
Vamos a cambiar tus sábanas, ¿sí? A ver. 1, 2, 3.
Sara lifts Cecilia to a sitting position to get her on a wheelchair. As she does so, a part of Cecilia's gown flap opens from the back. When Sara leans over to cover it, she notices something and stops. A large bruise is on Cecilia's side, just above her hip bone. Sara looks at it with alarm. Cecilia's muttering becomes more understandable. We see that the old woman's eyes are fixed on a spot across the room behind Sara, to a slightly open bathroom door which is pitch black inside.
Mi cariño, quiero verte otra vez.
Cecilia, what happened here?
Do you know where he is?
How did you get this bruise?
He comes to see me at night now.
Who, Cecilia?
Fidencio.
Who's Fidencio?
Cecilia continues to stare behind Sara.
Is he the one who did this to you?
I love his visits. Do you know where he is?
Sara closes the gown and as gently as she can hoists Cecilia into her wheelchair. She glances at the dark, agape bathroom door for a second. Then she exits the room with Cecilia. Interior hallway, day. Sara turns beside Annalise, 41, her jaded supervisor, who fills out a form on a clipboard. Cecilia sits in her wheelchair parked at the side of the hallway, a few yards away from them, still muttering to herself.
It's more common than you think with dementia patients. Unfortunate, but it happens.
So is this something I should report?
No, I can almost guarantee you that she tried to get up from her bed and hit her hip on a corner somewhere. Hold on.
Annalise grabs another nurse, handing her the clipboard and instructing her where to go with it. While Annalise speaks, Sara happens to glance up at the quarter dome acrylic mirror on the ceiling corner. She sees Cecilia from that fisheye reflection, but standing over her, behind her, there's a dark, gangly, vaguely defined figure. Sara looks away from the reflection to Cecilia, but sees that she is alone.
I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Sara, startled, looks back at Annalise, then does a quick glance back at the acrylic dome. Cecilia's alone. It takes Sara a second to collect herself.
Okay, it looks like a hand to me, like someone hit her or grabbed her.
Are you sure?
No, but I...
Look, that's Mando.
Annie points out Mando, a handsome male orderly wheeling a patient down the hall.
Talk to him. He works the night shifts. Get him to check it out with you. He can verify the type of injury.
Interior, Cecilia's room, day. Mando and Sara scrutinize the bruises above Cecilia's hip. Mando's face scrunches in pity.
See the edges?
He points it out.
Looks like a single impact. I've seen these a lot. She did it to herself, most likely an accident.
Should I still report this?
No, I wouldn't. Unless you want to deal with a ton of paperwork and fuss.
He starts making his way towards the door, then turns back to her.
It's your first week, right?
Second.
Don't worry too much about reporting. That's only with much worse cases than this. You'll learn.
Noted.
Mando leaves. Sara lingers for a few seconds. After a while, a look comes over Sara's face. She sniffs the air. There's a smell. She looks around the room, trying to trace the source. Her gaze lands on the bathroom door. It's still slightly ajar and dark inside. She slowly approaches it and squints. We can barely make out a vague shape, like the torso of a skinny man in the shadows. It's too dark to tell. She gets closer. Closer.
Also...
Sara quickly turns to him, startled.
Sorry.
Do you smell smoke?
No.
She turns to the bathroom door, opens it, and turns on the lights. Clean and empty.
I wanted to give you a heads up. Today her daughter normally visits. Try to keep the bruises on the down low. She's a bit of a handful. She made a fuss before. I think her husband's on the city council, so yeah. Make sure she doesn't see it.
Interior lobby, day. Justina, 47, dressed in her Sunday best, walks through the lobby carrying a bouquet of red roses. She walks past various patients and their visitors. Someone's grandchild is playing the lobby's baby grand piano, which is severely out of tune. Interior, Cecilia's room, day. Justina pulls the dead roses out of the vase, throws them in the trash, and places the new ones in. She goes over to her mother's side and takes out of her purse some moisturizer and a hairbrush. She sits down and starts brushing Cecilia's hair, a familiar, tender ritual. As Sara enters, Justina turns to her.
You're the new nurse.
Isaura.
Mucho gusto.
Sara sees the roses.
These are lovely.
They're her favorite. I think she stopped noticing them months ago.
Justina leans forward and puts her mouth close to Cecilia's ear.
Ama, estoy aquí. Justina.
Cecilia stirs and starts mumbling in response. Sara looks across from the room uneasily, monitoring the spot where the bruise is concealed by the gown.
Mi cariño Fidencio.
¿Quién, ama? ¿Quién?
She's been mentioning someone named Fidencio.
Justina turns to look at Sara.
Really?
She keeps talking of how he's been visiting her.
Justina lets that sink in. After a few quiet seconds, she turns back towards her mother.
Isn't that something?
Justina stares at Cecilia for a little bit. Then she places her hand tenderly on her cheek, strokes it, then goes back to brushing.
Do you mind if I ask who that is?
Justina takes out some moisturizer and puts a gob of it on her hands. She applies it all along Cecilia's limp arm as she speaks.
I only heard this once, when I was younger. My older sister told it to me, and well, at first I never believed it because my mother never spoke of it, even when I asked her. When my mom was first married to my dad, before she had kids, she had an affair, apparently, with some local rancher. He lived somewhere nearby her, I think, out in San Isidro. She must have been in her late teens, early 20s. Her being with my father was an arrangement their families made, so when I was growing up, they always had a very tense relationship.
Her hands travel over varicose veins, liver spots, dry and cracked skin with moles and scar tissue. Cecilia's milky eyes look at the ceiling with profound emptiness. Her chapped lips are barely parted.
So, the way my sister told it, she sneaks out most nights to see this man. She loved him a lot. And my father, at some point, finds out about it.
Cecilia's lips start to move and mumble ever so softly as if something in Justina's story is creating quite an emotional stir.
He basically stops it isn't the right word. He made sure that it wouldn't continue. He went over and threatened him, apparently, roughed him up a bit, and also did everything he could to make sure my mother never saw him again. She had to listen. She had no choice but to listen. So she did,
And Fidencio was this rancher?
Justina nods. Her hands are dangerously close to the spot where the bruise is.
Of course, she never spoke of it. Not to me, not to my father. No one. It's incredible. It's been, decades. Incredible that she's thinking about this now. I don't think I've ever heard her say his name.
A subtle pain look comes over Justina's face. Tears well. She fights the unexpected rush of emotion. As Sara notices, Justina tries to laugh it off.
Ay, Dios mío. I'm sorry. Look at me.
She closes up the moisturizing bottle and swipes at her eyes.
You can never quite get used to seeing them like this.
They fall silent. Cecilia goes on muttering softly to herself. Interior hallway day. The next day. As Sara puts on some latex gloves at the nurse's station. Behind her, a dark figure approaches her slowly. Something about it, its gait is unnatural. She does not notice. She puts one glove on. The figure is now very, very close. She sees a shadow. Feeling a chill, she turns around. No one stands behind her. A rose petal lands on the floor. As Sara looks at it, a bit unsettled, she picks it up, examines it. Interior, Cecilia's room day. Cecilia watches Sara from her wheelchair as Sara changes the bed sheets. Cecilia smiles when she turns and sees the brand new roses. She reaches out and plucks a petal. The petal falls to the floor. When Sara is done changing the sheets, she helps hoist Cecilia's back up onto the bed. Suddenly, the hospital curtains around the bed start to close around the perimeter, as if someone is pulling them. As Sara turns around, trying to look on the other side to see who's possibly pulling them.
Hey!
The curtains stop. They're now fully enclosed. As Sara steps around the left end, grabs the edge, and tries to pull it back. It won't budge. As Sara steps out from the curtains, sees the rest of the room. Looking around, the room is empty. She quickly steps out onto the hall to look. No one is close enough to have done this. As Sara steps back into the room, turning towards the curtains, and stops in her tracks.
All right, now we have Jersey RICAN by Ashlei Hardenburg. Interior, Lydia and Junior's house, second floor kitchen, day. Lydia smokes a cigarette while reading a thick book. Water boils on the stove next to a bag of rice. Chuco rushes in with Jeanette and Herman behind him.
What's for dinner?
Besos.
Chuco kisses her and sits. Jeanette and Herman do the same.
How was school?
Fine.
Jeanette gets her books out. Lydia pours rice into the boiling water. She stirs, then covers the pot.
A boy asked Jeanette out.
Chuco.
What? Everyone in school knows.
Who was it?
What's his name?
He's Irish.
Shit. At least he's not Dominican.
Do I know him?
What does it matter? I didn't say yes.
Why not?
'Cause I didn't want to.
Why not?
Jeanette scoffs and leaves with her things.
Jeanette, what happened?
Lydia shakes her head. She saves her page in the book and puts it down.
How come Titi Vanessa's not making dinner anymore?
It's just one day. What, I can't cook for you now?
Is it because of the mortgage?
Lydia looks at Herman.
Where do you hear that?
We heard you all over the house.
Lydia exhales hard.
Herman, don't get involved, please. That's the last thing your uncle wants. Hell, it's the last thing I want.
I could get a job.
Yeah, get a job.
What? I could.
Why don't you start by babysitting tonight, and we'll see if you can handle responsibility.
I'm talking about a real job, Ma.
It is a real job. Show me you can take care of the kids, and then we'll talk.
Lydia puts out her cigarette.
Let me talk to your sister, because, well, if I don't, Lord only knows.
Herman watches her leave, defeated. Chuco smirks and Herman notices.
Chuco, sit up straight, man.
Don't tell me what to do.
Don't talk back to me.
You're not my dad.
Yeah, 'cause your dad left.
So do yours. Don't mean you get to be him.
Herman and Chuco glare at each other until Herman breaks it. Interior, Lydia and Junior's house, second floor kids' room, day. Jeanette lays on the floor, books open, but she's not writing. Lydia walks in and closes the door behind her.
I don't want to talk.
Lydia lays down next to her. Jeanette rolls her eyes.
Relax. We don't have to talk about it. I just want to tell you that if you ever start, having feelings, or if you start getting curious down there.
You, Ma.
Yeah, I don't want to say it either. So just let me get it out, all right? If you feel something, because I know you still ain't got your period yet for some reason, or if you ever want to talk about anything, you don't have to do it alone. Okay? I'm here.
Yeah, I know.
I know you know, but I have to say it so you really know.
Jeanette sighs.
Thanks, Ma.
And don't ever let him tell you what to do with your hair. Irish curls ain't got shit on Puerto Rican hair.
They laugh.
Speaking of which, I gotta do something with this.
Lydia leaves. Off Jeanette, a small smile coming on. Interior, Lydia and Junior's house, second floor bedroom, day. Steam flies in front of Lydia's face. She places the curl tamer on the vanity and sighs. She looks nothing like the white woman on the magazine. There's a knock on the door.
Yeah?
Ma, Uncle Junior's here.
Yeah, let him in.
Junior walks in. He stares at Lydia's hair.
What'd you do to your hair?
I tried to straighten it, but it's not working, so
Why?
Because I got fucking Medusa head and shit. I don't know.
No, I mean, why'd you try to straighten it?
Lydia lets out an exasperated sigh. She pulls the curl tamer out of the wall and starts working on her face. Junior spots the dress hanging behind the door.
This the dress you bought?
Why, is Vanessa talking shit now?
No, but you talk shit about me spending money and you're out here going on dates.
And you're not? Don't think I don't know about that girl you've been seeing. Fucking gringa and shit.
Junior freezes.
Yeah, that's right. I got friends at the Latin Lounge, too. So do yourself a favor. Pay off the house, get my money back, and mind your own business.
You got some fucking nerve bringing that up.
Oh, do I?
Yeah.
I'll show you fucking nerve.
Lydia pounces up from the vanity and gets real close to Junior. She speaks low and firm.
My son thinks he has to get a job because of you. Your wife doesn't even know whose side to be on, and you won't even talk to nobody, Junior. No, because Junior's got it. He's gonna take care of it. So guess what? I'm getting this dress on, I'm taking my fucking nerve, and I'm getting a fucking drink.
Lydia sits back down. Junior watches her.
So dramatic.
Lydia sucks her teeth.
Get out. You don't tell me what's going on with you. I don't have to tell you what's going on with me.
All right. But I'm getting paid tomorrow, so really, don't worry about it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Junior leaves, shaking his head. Lydia catches her breath. Interior, Lydia and Junior's house, second floor, kids' room, day. Jeanette and Chuko hover over their books. Herman gets up and closes the door.
Listen, Jeanette, Luann invited me out.
Tonight?
She hangs out with Frankie. He's bad news.
Yeah, you can't leave me here with her. She's a nerd.
Jeanette taps Chuko upside the head.
Ow, you are.
I don't like Frankie either. I'm just going for Luann, and I need you to cover for me.
Lydia enters in her teal dress.
Wow.
Ma, that dress.
Herman, you gonna be responsible, or do I need Titi Vanessa up here?
Yeah, Ma, I got it.
Jeanette shoots him a look.
Good. And you two listen to him, okay?
Are you going anywhere fun?
I hope so. When I look this good, right?
Lydia kisses them all on the head.
Finish your homework. I love you.
Love you too.
Off Jeanette, glaring at Herman. Interior, barge in, night. Tommy chews meatballs loudly. Lydia picks at spaghetti and takes in the scene. Blonde women with straight hair and long nails, men in suits, horse races on the TV screens. It's crowded and loud.
You like this place?
Lydia pulls up her dress a bit, regretting the deep plunge.
I feel a bit overdressed.
Nah, you're perfect.
Lydia keeps a pleasant smile, pushes pasta.
So, tell me more about you.
What do you want to know?
Well, a guy like you treating me out to a place like this. You must be a big deal around here.
Tommy smirks, leans in.
Not much I can say about that, but it is a big deal.
He stuffs his face. Lydia taps her glass, then takes a big gulp of her wine. She takes his hand.
I gotta admit, the first time you talked to me, I wasn't sure about you. But now I see a man who's in control. A man who gets what he wants and don't let nobody get in his way. And I want to know that man.
She holds his stare. Tommy, with his big, stupid smile, waves to someone far.
Hey, Ricky.
Ricky, 43, greasy, approaches.
Hey, Tommy, how you doing?
This is Lydia.
Lydia reaches out her hand.
Hi, how are you?
I saw you when you walked in. She's beautiful, Tommy. What are you, Puerto Rican?
Yep, you got it.
I knew it. I fucking called it. I knew it.
Lydia, you know anything about numbers?
What? Of course I know about numbers. My father used to play that shit all the time.
Tommy pulls out $200. Easy.
What numbers you want?
2, 3, 9.
Ricky nods. Lydia watches him shuffle the $200 into a pile of hundreds and scamper away. Tommy finishes his food.
See, when my father did it, it was off the stock prices.
Tommy nods.
Sounds like he had good taste, your father.
Well, he wasn't a hustler or nothing, but when he saw an opportunity, he took it.
What are you saying? You think I'm a hustler?
No, of course not. Hustlers get in over their head. You're in control.
Another sip of wine.
We could be doing this every night, you and me.
I hope so.
Off Lydia, lighting up a cigarette. Interior, Lydia and Junior's house, second floor living room, night. Herman creeps in and sees Jeanette watching TV.
Mom's not home.
Herman exhales big and falls on the couch.
How was it?
Herman shrugs and smiles. Jeanette shrugs back and shakes her head.
Where's Chuko?
Jeanette shrugs. Herman turns to the hallway.
Chuko!
No response. Herman gets up. Interior, Lydia and Junior's house, second floor kitchen, night. Chuko quickly closes a box of cookies and climbs a chair. He puts the cookies on top of the fridge, then jumps down for the gallon of milk. He opens the fridge door, but drops the milk, spilling it all over the floor. Herman walks in.
Chuko!
I'm sorry.
The hell are you doing?
Nothing. I was putting it back.
Chuko and Herman stare at the milk puddle. It grows.
Well, clean it up.
Chuko jumps. He searches the kitchen.
How? What do I do?
What do you mean, what do? You get a paper towel.
Shouldn't we use a big towel?
No, what the fuck is wrong with you? Get the paper towels.
Herman jumps over the puddle and grabs the paper towel roll. He rolls it out and lays it down piece by piece. He pushes the roll into Chuko's hands. Chuko stares at him.
Clean it up.
Okay, stop yelling at me.
I wouldn't have to yell at you if you weren't so fucking stupid.
You're stupid. You hang out with Frank and his dumb friends just so you can talk to a girl.
Herman pushes him. Chuko falls back, hitting his head on the bottom cupboards. He touches it. There's a bit of blood.
Ow!
Vite, this is why your dad left.
At least I know who my dad is.
Herman towers over Chuko. Jeanette runs in.
Hey!
He started it.
No, you started it.
Stop, both of you. What are you, babies?
Herman turns and pushes past Jeanette, leaving Chuko on the ground. Jeanette scoffs at Herman. Chuko fights tears. Jeanette bends down to help him up, but Chuko slides away from her. He runs to the patio, holding his head. Jeanette stares at the puddle of milk on the floor.
What, so I have to clean this up now?
She looks around, no response. She sighs and grabs a mop. Interior, Lydia and Junior's house, second floor bedroom, day. Jeanette shakes Lydia.
Ma. Ma.
Lydia opens her eyes.
What?
We're going to be late for school.
Interior, Lydia and Junior's house, second floor kitchen, day. Herman cleans up after breakfast. Chuko ties his shoes. Lydia walks in, followed by Jeanette.
We're out of paper towels.
Lydia sees Chuko's head, the patch of dried blood.
What happened to you?
Chuko does not look her in the eye. Lydia looks to Jeanette, then Herman.
What happened to your brother?
Everyone is silent.
Oh, so no one wants to tell me what happened last night.
It was Herman.
Herman stares at Jeanette.
Herman went out last night, and when he was supposed to be watching us, and then when he got home, he pushed Chuko, and Chuko hit his head.
Why are you lying?
I'm not lying. That's what happened.
Stop it, both of you. I go out for one fucking night and you can't keep your hands off each other? That shit stopped when your father left. We don't do that in this house no more, you hear me?
Ma, it wasn't like that.
I don't care. We don't do that in this house. You don't do that anywhere. We're done with that shit.
We're going to be late for school.
Lydia looks at him.
Jeanette, get my purse.
Jeanette scurries. Lydia grabs a frozen pastele out of the freezer and holds it over Chuko's cut.
Wherever you went last night, I hope it was worth it.
Jeanette returns.
Jeanette, I'm going to give you money. You and your brother are going to take the bus. And we're going to have a long talk later, all of us.
Giving the pastele to Chuko.
Hold this.
Lydia pulls out one of the $100 bills from last night. She lingers with it. Then she hands it to Jeanette, who stares at it like it's gold.
And I want my change. Chuko, you're staying home.
I'm fine. I want to go to school.
Now I know you're not fine. Never heard you say that in my life.
She hugs Chuko. Jeanette pockets the $100.
Come on.
Jeanette and Herman leave. Lydia gets to Chuko's eye level.
I know you're not going to tell me how it happened, but I'm going to find out what happened. And you need to be okay with that.
Lydia leaves the room. A few tears slide down Chuko's face, but he wipes them before Lydia returns.
Exterior near the crash site, night. Mr. Weber puts his family photo inside his shirt. All students and teachers have climbed out of the bus. They look in all directions trying to gauge their surroundings. The shattered bus is in the middle of a massive forest. The trees are tall and look like lurking spirits, ominous. Valeria and Ben look upwards and see the cliff from which they fell.
Look at the size of that drop. It's a miracle we're alive.
It'll take another miracle to climb back to the highway. Lorena and Jen are crying inconsolable.
Now what?
It's getting dark.
No one knows where we are. How will they rescue us?
Now everyone is shitting bricks.
Remember that highway patrolman who gave us directions? He knows we took that old road. Sooner or later, someone will ask for us, and he knows we're here.
Who put the wuss in charge?
Timmy is affected by Kevin's comment. He reverts back to his introverted mode.
Asshole.
Timmy is right. There's a solution to every problem. Good vibes, people, good vibes.
I think we're better off alone than with these morons. Probably. An unearthly shriek. Everybody looks at each other, their fear crippling. The unseen Wendigo repeats the hideous and wild roar. The trees shake.
Everything is going to be okay. Let's stick together.
What is that noise? What is it?
Stay calm, kids. Don't make any sudden movements.
To make things more frightening, they hear the Wendigo's thudding loud steps. It is getting closer. From the darkness, we see a pair of eyes glowing, like a wolf or cat's eyes reflecting light through their retinas. The creature comes closer and closer. No one moves. Suddenly, a big black bear breaks free from the dark woods. Everyone screams, but the bear doesn't attack them. It doesn't even acknowledge them. The bear continues to run. Something has scared it.
Oh, hell no.
Mr. Weber sees the bear is leaving a trail of blood. The bear is alive but hurt.
This is not good.
The kids stare at each other and the teachers.
I want my mommy.
Me too.
Now fear has spread out like a virus, and everybody has a fever. Then from the trees we see the Wendigo's shape. Not his face, it's staring at the children and professors, waiting for the ideal moment to strike. We can hear his heavy breathing. intimidating and beastly.
Something is out there.
Mr. Novak grabs pieces of metal from the debris and starts making clanking and clinking sounds. He steps towards the direction of the forest.
Where are you going? You said we should stick together.
We hear another dreadful wail from the tall trees. Whatever animal causes its cry, its breath forms a mist. Now Mr. Novak sees again the predator's eyes. He makes the mistake of moving closer.
Don't go, Mr. Novak!
I'm scaring it away.
Mr. Novak ignores the warning and continues to march toward the creature, trying to scare it away with metallic sounds. The horrible shrieks stop. Mr. Novak, victorious, turns around and looks at his students.
See? I told you.
Without any warning, the creature fires its big, hairy, bony, claw-like hand and drives it right through Novak's stomach. It yanks him into the woods in the darkness and shadows. We hear bone-crunching and flesh-ripping sounds accompanied by an overshadowing growl. No one knows what to do.
Novak! Novak!
Something interrupts Mr. Weber. Mr. Novak's head rolls from the woods towards the children and teacher's direction. The head stops at their feet and wobbles for a few seconds. When it stops, Mr. Novak's cold, dead eyes stare at them. Mr. Novak is dead. Everyone screams. Their fear is agonizing and explosive, all except Yoshiro, who is staring at Mr. Novak's remains with a cold glare. The adults are just as shocked.
Holy shit! Mr. Novak? Mr. Novak!
Mr. Weber, Miss Cooper, help us!
The shouting continues. Mr. Weber looks at the bus and instructs the children.
Kids, run!
The kids run and hide inside of the bus. Interior, shattered bus, night. No one has a clue what happened or what to do next. Uncertainty is the only certainty. Miss Cooper looks at the trees with a 1,000-yard stare. Mr. Weber is the only one with authority now.
I think we're safe. Try to relax, kids.
How do you know if we're safe? You don't even know what killed Mr. Novak.
I don't want to die. Daddy!
You're not helping, Yoshiro. Shut up. The teachers and kids are staring at the forest cautiously among its shadows. The creature's eyes stare at them, almost taunting them. And without warning, they disappear.
Let's rest for a while. We need it. Then, we'll get out of this place.
The kids obey. Jenna and Lorena hug each other. Kevin grabs Patrick's shoulder to calm him. The rest of the kids do not comfort each other. Exterior crash site night. A couple of hours later, everyone starts stepping out of the bus. Ben grabs a stone and throws it towards the direction of the trees.
Ben, are you fucking crazy? What gives?
Just checking, man. I'm as afraid as you are.
Who says I'm afraid, fat fuck?
We hear another roar. Everyone is frozen. Now we see the Wendigo from behind its shoulder. It has bloody, crusty hairs. It's breathing heavily and watching them.
Miss Cooper, I'm afraid.
Me too, baby.
All of a sudden, the insects who were chirping and hissing stop making noises at the exact same time. The silence is scary. The breeze strokes the leaves off the trees, still no sign of the beast. The silence has never been this scary or deadly.
I guess he's...
A giant roar interrupts them. It is followed by the noise of tree trunks being torn apart.
Is he back? It's like he's hunting us.
The roar is now even louder and closer. Kevin looks scared. This time, bullshitting won't save him or his brother.
Pat, let's find a place to hide.
Mr. Weber, in pain, walks toward Miss Cooper. He signals her to follow him.
We have to save these kids by any means necessary. We might be their only salvation. Are you ready?
The kids who are paying attention to the conversation are waiting for the answer. Miss Cooper, who is wearing military pants, grabs something from her boot. She pulls out a hunting knife.
I was born ready. That ugly fucker will not mess with my kids.
Timmy and the twins are a little impressed.
Dude, she's not Sarah Connor. She's fucking Rambo.
Jenna and Lorena are still crying. The rest of the kids begin to pace the area.
Don't cry, sweeties. Hey, tell me, who do you hate most in Melrose Place? Shannon Doherty or Heather Locklear?
Lorena, obviously a fan, realizes he tried to make a joke but is not familiar with the characters. Even so, she found it endearing. Jenna has the opposite opinion.
Whatever.
We hear again the loud and vicious snarl coming from the trees. The trees move vigorously, but there's no wind.
Is it coming back?
Let's run.
Jenna, who is listening, runs off like a scared jackrabbit.
Jenna, honey, get back here.
The Wendigo steps out of its hiding place, and now we see it full frame. The Wendigo spots little Jenna and goes after her. It stands approximately 16 feet with overly long limbs, thin and muscular. Its bony fingers have dirty, powerful, curved claws. Its face and ribcage have no skin. Its head resembles a werewolf, and it has distinct killer antlers. The contrast between little Jenna's and the Wendigo's size is monstrous. Hopefully it will be over soon. When the Wendigo growls, it drools and exposes its massive fangs like sharks. It has 2 rows of teeth. Its eyes are big, dead, and yellowish. But their nightmare takes a turn for the worse. The ferocious Wendigo leaps towards Jenna. Jenna's petrified and tiny before it. A predator, the Wendigo examines and sniffs Jenna. Then with its right hand, he squashes her like a bug. Lorena witnesses this and screams.
Jenna!
Under its palm, she's a splatter beyond recognition. Jenna's dead. The Wendigo turns to look at the kids and teachers, daring them to move or speak. It licks Jenna's remains from the palm of its hand. The Wendigo emits a massive roar, its exposed teeth smeared with blood. Lorena walks backward in shock. She breaks into a spirit, but the Wendigo spots her. It emits another massive roar. Lorena is next, but not on Miss Cooper's watch. Miss Cooper grabs her hunting knife, ready to fight.
Don't touch her, cocksucker.
Miss Cooper taunts the Wendigo with her hands.
Let's dance.
The Wendigo runs like a bull in Miss Cooper's direction.
I'm gonna skin you alive and stick your fur in your ass.
Kids, take cover behind the bus and stay there.
The kids are frozen in fear.
Move it, move it, move it!
The Wendigo grabs Miss Cooper. Its grasp is crushing her. She can't even scream, it's so tight, but she's no quitter. She squirms in the Wendigo's grip. She finally frees her arm and brandishes the hunting knife. The Wendigo brings its face closer to hers. Furious, it drools and huffs. It snarls loudly, its rancid breath clouding the air between them. Miss Cooper stabs the Wendigo in its eye. A repulsive fluid gushes out. Half blind, the Wendigo screams. The demonic creature shows pain, but not for long. Then Miss Cooper notices something. The Wendigo's trachea squirms and gargles vigorously. It starts to imitate Mr. Novak's voice.
See? I told you.
It upsets Mrs. Cooper. She now slashes the Wendigo's throat, cutting its vocal cords. The roar changes pitch and drops to a guttural gurgling sound. The Wendigo bites Miss Cooper's shoulder. It tears a free big chunk of meat, and she cries out in agony. The kids watch on, shouting and panicked.
Get inside the bus now and don't come out until I say so.
Mr. Weber searches for a weapon. Despite his excruciating pain near the bus, there is a shattered glass and pieces of metal. He grabs a long rod of metal and holds it like a baseball bat. Meanwhile, Miss Cooper's crawling, trying to escape the Wendigo's reach. She hits the wall of the cliff. The Wendigo tries to gore her with its antlers, but as he hits the wall, the antlers get stuck in it. Miss Cooper seeks the opportunity. She crawls under him and slashes him one more time. The kids are now looking for weapons, too. Timmy sees a small briefcase on the school bus, a flare gun. He quickly grabs it and hides it in his backpack. The Wendigo is still, stuck on the wall. Miss Cooper slices the Wendigo's Achilles tendon. It splits in 2. The Wendigo is semi-paralyzed. It can't use its right leg. Furious, it glares at Miss Cooper with its remaining eye. It jumps, grabs her, and throws her towards a big tree that has long, sharp branches. She is impaled by the tree's branches. Mr. Weber tries to help her, but the kids grab him.
Don't leave us, Mr. Weber.
We need you, sir. The Wendigo approaches Miss Cooper again. She tries to break one branch that is sticking out of her body. The Wendigo enjoys her desperate attempts to kill it. This is one sadistic beast. It seems that Miss Cooper can't fight anymore, but she still has some fight left in her. She breaks the branch that was sticking out of her body and stabs it under the Wendigo's jaw. The other end of the branch protrudes from its mouth. On her final breath, Miss Cooper looks at the Wendigo with a "fuck you" smile.
Sara!
Miss Cooper is dead. The Wendigo is wheezing, drooling, saliva and blood. It has human tissue on its fangs. It starts to shake and make eerie and disgusting sounds. Something is happening to its injuries. Slowly, painfully. They are self-healing.
What the hell's it doing?
We don't stand a chance against that thing. It's a self-healing. It's wounds. Everyone realizes Wendigo will soon be 100% recovered.
This is so bad.
Mr. Weber, help us!
Mr. Weber knows their chances are very thin. He looks at them and hides his own tears.
Kids, do as I say, please. Run as fast as you can and don't look back. Just run away, please.
But Mr. Weber...
Now, no, sorry.
Mr. Weber stands up and, holding his exposed fracture, shouts at the children.
Now, damn it, now!
The kids take one last look at the injured Mr. Weber. They realize how lucky they were to know him. They make a run for the forest. Mr. Weber is now alone. He keeps a firm grip on the metal rod. He is ready to go 10 rounds with the Wendigo. Mr. Weber takes the bloodied family photograph from his shirt, gently kisses the picture.
See you when I see you, babies.
Mr. Weber hits the bust with the metal rod, like a chef hitting the triangle or a priest striking the church bell. This is an invitation to war. The Wendigo focuses on Mr. Weber, who continues to bang harder and harder against the bust, drawing its attention away from the escaping students.
All right. After Hebden by David Kirkham. Interior, space, fighter mover interior.
Use old nano weapons!
The nanotendrils that make up the exterior bodies of the fighter movers shift and glow with power. The fighter movers spin as their weapons start to fire. A horde of them are hit by the returned fire of the interplanetary mover. They explode. Interior, space, interplanetary mover interior. Nanoblast fire hits the interplanetary mover. The nanotendrils repair themselves. The mover rocks violently. The jolt starts to stir Hebden from her trance. She moans slightly. Lael 1 continues evasive maneuvers.
How does it explain a lot?
I'm sorry, but...
I'm sorry, but that is so annoying. Do you know how annoying that is? To start every statement like you're constantly apologizing for having a view?
I'm sorry.
The mover is shaken by another round of fire.
Tell me!
Doppelganger syndrome.
Another huge vibration as another part of the mover is hit.
More!
Lael 1 turns up the nanoblast firepower.
Cloning two living people creates a doppelganger effect. Experiences from one leach out to the other. Thoughts, memories, knowledge.
A massive blast hits the mover. Almo is thrown around in his seat.
More!
Lael 1 turns up the nanoblast firepower again.
It's why you knew how to get into the recycling facility. It's how you knew all about the cloning process. It's why I thought you were spying for them. And judging from the tech we've seen on Mars that only we thought we knew about, well, it seems it works both ways.
Jesus cries.
Exterior, space. The mover is a glowing vortex as it prepares to fire at the swarm of fighter movers. The fire from the fighter movers stops abruptly. The fighter commander slumps in her seat, blood pouring from her mouth and ears. Fighter mover pilots lie dead and dying as their decaying DNA kills them. The dead swarm glides off at a sharp tangent to the interplanetary mover. The interplanetary mover fires its weapons. The glow fades as Lael 1 deactivates. The weapons explode and destroy the fighter movers. Interior, day, the interplanetary mover. Lael 1 slumps exhausted in his seat. Hebden comes to.
Where's Gogo?
Almo reaches out for Hebden's hand and sees her birthmark has stopped glowing.
It's okay. You're safe.
Uncle Elmo?
Hebden tries to sit up. She spots Lael 1 and freezes.
No, it's okay. He's not... He just found out there are two of them.
Hebden looks across to see Buxton slumped in the seat next to her. Hebden grimaces.
What's he doing here?
Almo gets out of his seat and checks on Buxton, slapping his face to try and bring him round.
We're bringing him home with us.
Why?
I need to find out how he got your DNA to produce such an amazing result.
Result?
You should have seen it, Hebden. Your mom and dad would have been amazed.
Her mom and dad would have been horrified.
I'm sorry. Can't you see that this is our chance to use that technology for something good? If I can get a hold of that technology we saw on Mars, we can...
We can what? Produce a planet load of clones to do your bidding? To colonize the universe the good old Elmo way?
Yes. If I can clone Hebden's DNA...
Really? You would exploit your own niece, make her into a brood clone?
Look.
You're as big a megalomaniac as anyone on the committee.
You don't understand.
Both of you just sod off.
Almo and Lael 1 stop their row.
You're talking about cloning me to populate the universe, and you haven't even asked me how I feel? Like I don't exist?
Almo and Lael 1 look at each other. Almo looks at Hebden.
I'm sorry. How do you
think?
Hebden diverts her gaze. Almo follows it to see the devastated Earth looming large in the mover window. Huge cloud formations and storms encircle the planet. Oceans look silvery gray and land masses appear barren. Only around the Arctic regions is it vegetation hanging on. Almo, Curé Lyle 1, and Hebden look on in silence. Curé Lyle 1 looks away. Hebden sobs quietly.
Erlif will understand.
Interior, day, Greener Corp. Almo and Erlf stand outside their house.
I know it's hard to understand.
No way. Hebden is a 13-year-old girl, not a glorified battery hen.
Erlif, just let me explain one more time.
No! I'm not going to help you rehash some insane scheme hatched by maniacs. A group, which you, by the way, now includes you.
Erlf walks away. Almo reaches out and pulls him towards himself. They kiss, then draw apart.
Oh, come on, no tongues?
I'm really pissed off with you.
Erlf walks off, and Almo is left alone, looking exhausted and defeated. Interior, day, the house. Erlf walks through the light and airy house. He stops at a door and knocks. There is no response. He knocks again. No response.
Hebden? It's me, Arif. I want to talk to you.
Get lost.
Look, I understand Almo's being a complete dickhead, okay?
I said get lost, okay?
I'm going to talk sense into him. He's had his own way all his life. But not this time, okay? I think of you like the child Almo and I can never have. You're so precious to me. Us. Hebden. You know Almo, he's...
Erlf walks away, wipes away tears.
I'll be in my lab if you need me. There's a whole load of food in the kitchen, and we got some great strawberries.
Erlf walks away. Erlf walks into his lab, reaches for a container and opens it. Inside are the black and white pig hairs.
Right. You hairy little bastards. Let's see what you gotta say.
Interior, day, Almo's lounge. Almo slumps in a chair. Almo looks out onto the landscape of Greener Corp. A gentle breeze rustles leaves. Almo closes his exhausted eyes. He hears a dull thud. Another louder thud follows. Almo opens one eye. Another even louder thud. Almo opens both eyes and sits up. The thuds start coming in rapid succession. Almo stands sharply, a look of alarm on his face. Curé Lyle's 1's phase array image appears.
We're under nano-nuclear attack from GSIRS.
Let me talk to her.
Okay, I'll put counterattack protocol on...
I need her alive.
GSIRS' phase array image appears.
What do you want?
Hebden.
We can both have her.
I will destroy Greener Corp.
A huge, muffled explosion.
Being 1,000 feet below the surface doesn't make you safe. I'll be down in 5 minutes to blow you up.
Wait. If you promise not to destroy Greener Corp, you can have Hebden.
2 minutes.
GSIRS' phase array image disappears.
Erlf.
Erlf's phase array image appears.
What's happening?
GSIRS is coming to get Hebden.
You can't seriously be thinking about handing her back.
She'll blow us all up.
Erlf is silent.
Go and check on Hebden. Make sure she's safe. Don't let her know what's happening. I have a plan.
Not another bloody one.
Erlf's face disappears. Interior, day, Greener Corp landing area. A SIRS Corporation mover descends from the sky above Greener Corp. The craft lands. GSIRS alights the craft carrying Gogo. Almo is waiting for her. He reaches for Gogo. GSIRS draws Gogo away.
Hebden first.
Almo and GSIRS walk through the lush greenery. As they walk, GSIRS picks at fruit from trees, runs her hands across leaves, her eyes glancing skyward to see the tops of trees and the birds that fly between them. Almo shows GSIRS into the large, comfortable lounge of his dwelling overlooking Greener Corp. Almo gives a self-satisfied smile to G-Sirs.
I have no need of beauty. It fades.
Let me keep HEBDEN, and we can share all this. And by the way, using doppelganger syndrome for corporate espionage, well, that was genius. With me on board, we could reverse your genetic time bomb and stop Mars from looking like a moldy potato. How's that for a project?
My iconic status is more valuable to me than any project.
But if we can get a hold of...
G-Sirs makes a dismissive gesture.
No more chit-chat. Bring me HEBDEN.
No. Wait, I have a proposal.
Now.
We could ask the writers who are here to come on up and switch places with the actors. Okay, let's bring up our screenwriters who are in the house.
Screenwriter.
Hello. All right, so why don't let me ask each of the screenwriters who are here if they could introduce themselves and tell us which one was your script. So we'll start right here.
Hi, my name.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Hi. You guys did a really fabulous job, by the way. Thank you so much. That was really awesome. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys were great, honestly. My name is Ashlei Hardenburg. I wrote Jersey RICAN.
All right.
Can you tell us what it's about?
Yeah, that was going to be my next.
Sorry.
My next question was going to be, they're all excerpts. So if you could tell us the whole story.
Yeah, sure. Jersey RICAN is about a Puerto Rican woman who is trying to save her family from her deadbeat brother, who she needs a lot of money, and so she finds this guy who's kind of big in the gangster community, and she starts kind of trying to befriend him and gain a lot of money through him so that she can support her own family, which is kind of falling into a bad habit, essentially. But she has to do what she's got to do, to save her family. Yeah.
Next. Yeah, I think
sharing. I don't know.
Yeah.
So my name's Mark Spera, and my screenplay was Transference.
Okay.
It was a feature, and it's about this renowned psychiatrist who is famous for past life regression therapy, and he's proved that past lives exist, that we all have them. It's set about 20 or 30 years in the future, but he's also developed a drug and technology that allows you to transfer an ability from a past conscious to the future, to your present consciousness. So if you had a past life and you were able to speak French, he's able to transfer that ability into your current present consciousness. But it has all kinds of has great implications for humanity, but all sort of unintended consequences that he soon discovers. Right. So, yeah, that's what it's about.
Nice.
Hello, my name's David Kirkham. I wrote After HEBDEN, which is a LGBTQ science fiction action drama. It's set at an indeterminate point in the future after a major financial global crash and ensuing apocalypse in a world of biotech, nanotech that's run out of control, controlled by the 1%, by celebrities and politicians who have used their wealth to buy them immortality and use clones to sort of colonize the universe. It's a road movie. It's a chase movie. It's a movie about hope and despair intertwined. And I'm English, as you can tell.
Pick up a little from the script, actually. So. Hi, I'm Heidi Bordogna, and my script was TODD and LOVETT. It's a pilot, actually, for a series, and thank you guys again for your lovely readings. It's my own take on the story. If any of you are familiar with Sweeney Todd, it is not based on the musical. It has nothing to do with the musical. It's based on the original characters from the Penny Dreadfuls, and then a few that I
built in myself. And basically, it's set in Victorian London, but in this one, Mrs. Lovett is just as large a figure, an important a figure as Sweeney Todd, as is the young Elizabeth and some of the others who you met in the brief snippet that we were able to hear tonight.
Hello. My name is Claudio Martinez-Valle. I wrote Field Trip. It's a horror feature, and it's about a bunch of misfit students, teenagers, about 12, 13, who go on a field trip, a detention field trip. But in the middle of the night, the school bus skids on black ice, and they fall into a cliff. And underneath that cliff, there's this mythical creature named Wendigo. And what happens throughout the movie is that the three teachers get killed. So this bunch of misfits have to survive throughout the movie, you know, with different sets of personality. So it's who gets killed first by the Wendigo or among the kids. So at the end of the movie, it's kind of the Cabin of the Woods meets Lord of the Flies.
Hi guys, I'm Christian Jacob Ramon. I wrote Mi Cariño, the short horror screenplay, and it is basically about a newly hired nurse that's in this nursing home that begins to suspect that one of her patients is being visited by this malevolent spirit from her past, but then the more that she digs into it and the more that the sort of harm intensifies, the more that then she realizes that it's actually a much darker, more disturbing story than she thinks it is, and it's sort of all kind of a build up to that. So thank you guys again for doing a wonderful reading of it.
I'm Josh Madden. I wrote ROADRUNNER, and I think I was the only script that was read in its entirety, so you know exactly the whole thing. It was actually it came from another contest that I did, which was the NYC Midnight Contest, where they give you a subject at midnight and tell you to write this. So I had 12 days to come up with a political satire with the subject of gullibility and the character of a lawyer. So I will say I didn't know where to start. You know, when you get this, so I pulled out my phone and my long list of notes, and one of the notes I came across was this Roadrunner story that actually happened to me as a child, and so I started from that. And basically, yeah, it's about how an idea can be completely innocuous. You know, it's like, do you care what kind of shoes you wear? No, not until it suddenly becomes political, and then all of a sudden you have an opinion. You know, before that, you know, who cares? But now you got to choose a side. So, yeah, it just showed how quick that can happen too. You know, so by the end of the story, you know, you're talking 3 or 4 days later, this lawyer doesn't even realize this has happened, and under his nose this has happened, and now the jury has chosen a side to something that normally they wouldn't care about. So that's that.
I just want to ask each of you, I guess we'll start with Ashlei, what inspired each of your scripts? What inspired the story?
So my story is actually inspired by my family. I'm a Latina. We're Puerto Rican. We're from Jersey City. My family's been in Jersey City since the 40s. And so a lot of what I find interesting is that they kind of acclimated to the mainland lifestyle in a very Jersey way by clinging to Italian Americans. And so a lot of our culture is actually very like Italian American culture, hence the term Jersey Rican. And so we have these weird like Italian Americanisms in our family that are you just don't find, like are not normal for Puerto Ricans to have. And so just inspired by the sort of, my grandmother, when she was 21, she had 4 kids, and she basically saved the house. She paid off the mortgage on her home by working 2 jobs. But she's also, I wanted to play with this idea that she potentially dabbled in something else, potentially with these Italian Americans that she was hanging out with. So that's kind of what inspired the story.
And Mark?
Oh, sorry.
Let me see. So I'm from Indiana. Has anyone been to Indiana? Anybody? Okay. So this is yeah. So it was inspired by. So my wife and I are on the back porch. It's like, I don't know, September, and we're wondering why we're stuck in Indiana. And, and so I think after about half the bottle, we figured that we were being punished for something we did in a past life. And then the idea just kind of, grew from there. And I sort of came up with the idea that Earth is actually an acronym for Expansive Artificial Rehabilitative Time Habitat. So it's really a prison where we all come when our consciousnesses want to experience the physical. So it all was inspired by just, a good bottle of Cabernet. So there you go.
Okay, David?
I was inspired by a good bottle of Prosecco.
There you go.
There you go. Like any film of that genre, the post-apocalyptic genre, it's a projection of the times we live in. We live in scary times, very dark days. Climate breakdown is happening. It's happening faster than we thought it was going to. That's all being combined with sort of political authoritarianism, like Trump in this country, and what's happening in the UK and around the world. So really, it's my projected fears and nightmares onto paper, hopefully onto screen, so that other people can relate to it. And also, it's an LGBTQ screenplay in that the two main characters, Almo and Errolf, are in the same gender, same-sex relationship. But what you don't find in Hollywood is sci-fi action dramas with gay LGBTQ lead characters that come, often supporting characters. And there are some examples of some cult films where you have LGBTQ characters. But I wanted one where where the two main characters or the main character was gay, and it wasn't an issue because in this time in the future, no one gives a fuck if you're gay. The planet's dead, and everyone's just trying to live. So that was the inspiration.
Okay, so my inspiration, it's my partner Rob sitting here filming this. 2 years ago for my birthday, he took me to see this wonderful off-Broadway production of Sweeney Todd down at the Barrow Street Theater. And so it was a fabulous evening. And of course, my brain is already spinning and working. And on the way home, I'm thinking, we've had so many iterations of Jack the Ripper and Sherlock Holmes and all these other Victorian era well-known characters, but apart from the musical, there really hasn't been anything done with Sweeney Todd. And especially the idea of Mrs. Lovett as being such a powerful force to be reckoned with as well. So the wheels started turning, and I started doing research into the origins and found out that, in fact, the characters were based, they're public domain, based on Penny Dreadfuls. And started building a narrative around that and realized, I think this can sustain more than a single story. And so at this point, I have about 6 seasons mapped out, and we'll see where it goes.
Okay, something that I always say that I have in common with Guillermo del Toro is that 2 things, that we both were born in Mexico. And the other thing is, when I was a kid, I was terrified about monsters. And so I made a decision to write movies about monsters so I can conquer that fear. And what I like about Field Trip is about a movie that you have like 8 kids, 12 years old, who are fighting this demonic creature called Bendigo. And it doesn't matter if they're cute, charismatic, if they're bullies or not. Any one of these kids could get killed by the end of the movie. Any rules apply. I mean, it's not like the perfect movie that the hero survives and the bullies get killed. Anyone could die by the end of the movie.
Yeah, so mine was inspired by a couple things. One was unfortunately, my great-grandmother in her last days was in a nursing home, and she had Alzheimer's. And something that we would sort of notice is that we would find that she would sometimes be missing like patches of her hair from like a razor. Like there was someone who would, whoever was bathing her or cutting her hair or whatever, there would just be, and then these like scratches and these like little things that would kind of happen. And, she was hardly ever lucid, so she could never really tell us like where they came from or whatever. That was one aspect of it. And then I started reading and doing some research about how unfortunately, in a lot of these instances, you have elderly abuse that happens in nursing homes where, especially with patients that have some kind of mental affliction where they can't quite articulate or remember or stuff like that. And specifically with like sexual assault, like that is something that unfortunately just happens more often than America cares to admit. But so it was a combination, I think, of those two things that initially got me started on the idea of like, this image of this woman and this dynamic of this nurse that really does want to help her and care for her. And then, the Mi Cariño ends up where, the sort of twist at the end is it's not at all the ghost that's doing this to her. This is actually, she's facing a much more real life horror than you think. And so it was, I think, just a combination of those two things that made the script happen. So.
Yeah, as I said, the initial story for Roadrunner actually happened to me. So, but I mean, if I wasn't told, write a political satire, I don't think that ever would have morphed into a political satire. So, I mean, I think just the idea of that, as far as inspiration, yeah, it's funny. It just evolved into what it became based on the criteria that I was trying to fit into as well. But I mean, I guess I would just like to say when it comes to writing, the idea of always making notes. If you remember some strange little anecdote that happened to you, write it down, because you never know when you get stuck on a scene or when you're trying to come up with the beginning of something. You can go through those notes and you'll find something, and you never know what that's going to evolve into. Because when I looked at that note of the Roadrunner story, I had no idea it was going to go the way it went, But yeah, I mean, as far as initial inspiration, yeah, that really did happen to me. So.
All right, and finally, does anybody have any questions for any of the writers? Anyone at all? Oh, yeah.
I would love to hear what each of your next steps and goals are for your pieces.
Okay. Actually, yeah, that was going to be my last question as well. No, that's totally cool. Yeah, just in the last minute, real quick, just what are your plans with your scripts? You're going to try to make it into a film, try to sell it? Ashlei, you want to start?
Yeah, I'm going to try to pitch this. It's a TV pilot, so I'm going to try to pitch it so that it gets to television. It was a quarterfinalist in Final Draft, Big Break competition. It was a quarterfinalist in We Screenplay. I won here. So I think it's going to go places, hopefully. So we'll see soon.
Yeah, I don't know really. It's won a lot of contests out in L.A. as well as this one. It's kind of high concept, the whole thing. It's a sci-fi action sort of thriller. I have a different screenplay that's kind of a horror thriller. That's also won a few things. I think I'm going to try to maybe do something with that because it's low budget, and maybe try to make that myself. That type of thing. So, you never know, man. You just never know. So, just keep trying to get people to read them. I think that's the bottom line, right? So.
I think I'm going to try and get mine turned into a family musical for Christmas 2021. No, I would like to get it made into a feature film, but it's a bit like Mark's. It's very high concept, big budget, and I can't. How many crowdfunders I'd have to get $20 million together to make it? I don't know, but yeah, I'll just keep putting it into competitions and pitching it.
Yeah, just, trying to get it out there. I have representation, so we're, kind of we have plans with it. One of the hardest parts about television is going out with something. You basically need a showrunner or a major director attached, and so we're kind of pacing ourselves among a few other projects that we have right now. So as much as I'd love to be like, read this right now, I'm trying to pace myself and be a bit more strategic with it so that we can position it when it's the absolute best time. So this is wonderful, and I'm thrilled to be a part of this festival and get another accolade on it. We were a finalist at ITV Fest, and so it's done a couple of things, but it's just about the time to start bringing it out.
Well, in my script, I think this is the most difficult part for me. Writing was easy and fun, but trying to pitch it to different, producers is very, very hard. I mean, even though my script has won several awards, it's still difficult. I mean, I pitched it to Blumhouse, to J.J. Abrams, but still, I mean, they tell you strong project, but not now. But even though they tell you no, you have to be persistent, believe in yourself, and still pitch, because eventually somebody will say yes.
Yeah, no, all of that is so accurate and inspiring to hear from everyone. And I live in Texas, and I'm trying to, get this particular one made in South Texas. I mean, I'm trying to talk with, there's this one producer that's considering it, and I'm trying to sort of, and this is really nice because I can slide it across the table from him and be like, it won an award. Like, it's not just any, little script. But yeah, so the idea is just I'd like to try to get it made and, maybe see where it goes.
Yeah, this is, I found out earlier today that I won the Austin Spotlight Film Festival with the script as well, and I've got a couple of wins in LA, so it's 2020 coming up. There's an impeachment going on. I think a political satire is it's a good time for that, so hopefully if I can pull the budget together and get it done sometime, get it shot, produced in the next 6 to 8 months, catch the award circuits on the end of next year. That's kind of what I try to plan to do with this, I guess. Yeah.
All right, so congratulations to Mark Spera, writer of Transference, Josh Madden, writer of Roadrunner, Ashlei Hardenburg, Jersey Rican, Clemy, Clarke, Paul in Virginia, David Kirkham, After Hebden, Claudio Martinez-Valle, Field Trip, Christian Jacob Ramon, me, CARINO, Heidi, Bordogna, TODD, and LOVETT. And of course our amazing cast, Gary Lee Mahmoud, Sara Kiefer, Sierra Naomi, Johnny Weber, Courtney Fenwick, Cameron Ward, Robert Lincoln, Mike Mills, Chris Emmanuel. Thank you all and congratulations.